Hello? There you go. Do you guys have any Christmas traditions? One of the traditions that I had growing up, and still to this day, is I would watch the movie It's a Wonderful Life. Has anyone seen that movie? It's an older movie, but I've seen it probably around 40 times now. And it is such a good movie. And the movie, it opens up with a shot of space. And it has these constellations and stars that represent God and angels. And they are responding to a bunch of prayers that are coming up for a guy named George Bailey. And in this opening scene, the God and the senior angel, they're saying that it is a junior angel's turn to go down and help this man named George Bailey. And they call over the junior angel named Clarence, and they have this conversation. And so watch this very short clip about that with this conversation.
Sing for Clarence.
You sent for me, sir?
Yes, Clarence. A man down on Earth needs our help.
Splendid. Is he sick?
No, worse. He's discouraged.
Clarence asks God, is he sick? And God responds, no, worse. He is discouraged. And maybe you're here this morning and you are discouraged. You have had a rough week, a rough month, a rough year, a rough life. Life has a way of just kicking people when they're down, doesn't it? And so if you're here this morning and you are discouraged, my prayer is that you will leave here feeling hopeful. When you're discouraged and you have no more hope, it can be worse than being sick at times. Life without hope can be crippling. Viktor Frankl, in his book Man's Search for Meaning, he recounts his experiences in a World War II concentration camp as a survivor of those camps. And he tells this, he says in his book that it isn't the strongest or the fittest or the healthiest that were the most likely to survive the concentration camps. But he says it's rather the people that had a purpose in their life, a desire for something after the concentration camp. The people who had hope were the ones that were most likely to survive. He tells the story of a fellow prisoner. And the fellow prisoner, he would have this recurring dream that they would be freed on a specific date. And the prisoner became convinced that his dream was going to become reality and they were going to be freed on this date. And so as the date draws closer and closer, they're hearing news from the battlefronts, and it becomes more and more evident that they aren't going to be freed by this date. And the prisoner's, his health, as it gets closer and closer to the date, his health declines and declines. And the date that the prisoner thought they were all going to be freed comes and goes, and they are not freed. And Viktor Frankl, he says that prisoner, he went to sleep that night and didn't wake up the next morning. He had lost all hope to even live. At the end of Isaiah chapter 8, the Israelites are in this very dark place. They had been influenced by false gods and false teachers and prophets that led them into these spiritually dark places. To think like a cult or witchcraft or astrology today. And so they had been led astray into all of these dark places. And this is the backdrop for what the prophet Isaiah writes in Isaiah chapter 9, starting in verse 1. It says, "But there will be no gloom for her who was in anguish. In the former time, he brought into contempt the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, but in the latter time, he has made glorious the way of the sea, the land beyond the Jordan, Galilee of the nations. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelt in the land of deep darkness, on them has light shone. And so despite the Israelites being in this dark place, the prophet Isaiah is saying that a great light is going to shine on them and give them hope. And so what is it that this light is going to bring, what is it that this hope is going to bring the people despite being in this darkness, despite being in a place where it seems like there is no hope? Verse 3 tells us, it says, "You have multiplied the nation, you have increased its joy. They will rejoice before you as with joy at the harvest, as they are glad when they divide the spoil. For the yoke of his burden and the staff of his shoulder, the rod of his oppressors, you have broken as on the day of Midian. For every boot of the tramping warrior in battle tumult, and every garment rolled in blood will be burned as fuel for the fire." And so what the prophet Isaiah is saying is these are the blessings that this hope will bring. It will bring an increase in number. They will harvest what they did not plant or sow. They will have victory over their enemies, and that victory will bring about peace. And this is what this light and this hope is going to bring them. But who is it that brings this hope? Who is this light that Isaiah is talking about? Verse 6 tells us, it says, "For to us a child is born, to us a son is given. And the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and of peace there will be no end on the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it with justice and with righteousness from this time forth and forevermore. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will do this." And so Isaiah says that from the line of David, a son will be given, for a son will be given, and a child will be born. It is through this child, Jesus, our Christ and our Savior, that we are forgiven and we find hope. Jesus is the light that bursts forth through the darkness of despair and discouragement and gives us hope. And here is the truth for this morning. Hope, Christian hope, is not just a dream. It is a promise that redeems. Christian hope is not just a dream that we can just someday hope is going to come true or wish that is going to come true, but it is a promise of redemption. Like, it's not a distant dream. It can be a present reality for the here and the now. If you are discouraged and in a moment of darkness and despair and discouragement, Christian hope is not a dream of some distant future, but it can be a present reality now for you today. And Paul, he kind of talks about this a little bit in Romans 8, starting in verse 18. It says, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us." What Paul is saying is he's saying that you can have hope because the suffering and the despair that you're feeling now isn't going to compare to the future glory that is to come. And then Paul, from here, he goes on and he talks about two different types of hope. He says that there is going to be hope for the world in general, but then he also goes on and he talks about hope for your life individually. And so hope for the world. In verse 19 it says, "For the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it in hope, that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation has been groaning together in the pains of childbirth until now." Paul is saying that we live in this fallen, imperfect world, and he knows that, and God knows that because he created it and he allowed it to happen. And we all understand this because we all experience pain and suffering and the results of living in this fallen, broken world. But Paul is saying that it's okay. God knows that it's this way, but he has a plan to redeem it and make it whole again. He has a plan to make it better. And that word longing to me is interesting because you long for things that you know are going to happen. You long for things in the future that you know are going to come true. And here is another truth for this morning is that biblical hope isn't a wish, but a promise. The word hope in the world today is Christmas is coming up and you might have a kid that hopes they're going to get, I don't know, a Switch 2 or some whatever the big present is this year, and they hope they get that, but they may or may not get it. Biblical hope isn't that type of hope. It is not a wish, but a promise. We know that biblical hope is going to come true and that God is going to redeem the world. And Paul goes on to talk about childbirth and the pains of childbirth and the groaning that childbirth brings and the pain and the suffering that it brings. And he says that it is all worth it for the joy of being able to hold your child at the end of it. I love going out into nature and visiting national parks and doing things of that. And about a decade ago now, my dad and my brother-in-law and I, we went on this trip out to Utah and Arizona and went to all the different national parks in those areas. And one day we were in Page, Arizona, because I really wanted to see a place called Horseshoe Bend. And it's part of the Grand Canyon, and it's where the river comes around and kind of creates this horseshoe, and it's a beautiful sight. And so we all were camping out, and we get up early, and we drive to the place, the parking area of Horseshoe Bend, and it's really only a couple hundred yards hike to the area. And so we get there before sunrise because I wanted to be there for sunrise. And we get there before sunrise, about 30 minutes before, and just as the light is starting to come up, and it's like the sun hasn't risen yet, but you can still see, you don't need flashlights, and so the sun is about to come up, a storm comes through, and right as the storm passes through the area, the sun rises and the beams of the light create this double rainbow over Horseshoe Bend. And to this day, it was one of the most beautiful, if not the most beautiful sight I have ever seen. My brother-in-law was literally brought to tears because of how beautiful it was. And we were the only ones there, and we were marveling at God's creation and how beautiful it was. And then the storm passes, and the sun is rising, and about 15 minutes later, after the rainbows disappear, the first car that wasn't us arrives, and a car full of people come, and they're looking out at this beautiful sight, and they're saying, they're telling us, like, man, isn't this so beautiful? And I just wanted to tell them, I was like, if you only knew how much more beautiful it was like 15 minutes ago with this double rainbow over it. And we are those people a lot of times. This world is a beautiful thing. And we come and we're like, man, this is so great. This is so beautiful. This is so wonderful. And God is telling us, if you only knew how much more beautiful this world could actually be. A world without violence, a world without death, a world without sickness, a world without racism or crime or any of the bad things, a world without poverty and oppression. Like, this world could be so much more beautiful. Paul then goes on from here and he talks about hope for the individual. In verse 23 it says, and not only the creation, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for adoptions as sons, the redemption of our bodies. For in this hope we were saved. Now, hope that is seen is not hope, for who hopes for what he sees? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience. When you're in the middle of being discouraged and in darkness and despair, sometimes that is all you can see, and it is hard to look past your current circumstances, isn't it? And Paul is saying that we need to look past that to see a future hope. Mr. Beast is kind of one of the probably the most famous YouTuber of all time. He if you haven't heard of him, he has like 450 million subscribers, and he is constantly coming out with videos that within hours have millions and millions of views. And he's kind of unlocked the secret to grabbing people's attention and keeping them watching his videos. And one of the ways he does this is he puts people in really difficult situations. And so you watch his videos, and a lot of them are, if you can survive, every day you survive in a grocery store by yourself, I will give you $10,000 or something ridiculous like that. Or if you can survive 100 days in this bunker, then you'll get $500,000. Or if you survive 100 days living in a private jet, then you get to keep the private jet. And so the videos are him essentially putting people in these really difficult situations. And these people are willing to endure the situations because they know what is coming at the end of the challenge or the video. And imagine for a second that he puts two people through identical difficulty and like a difficult challenge or whatever. And they're going through the difficult challenge. And to one, he says, hey, if you can make it through this difficult challenge, if you can make it through 30 days of this living by yourself in this bunker or whatever, then I will give you $1 million. And to the other person, he says, if you can make it 30 days living in this bunker by yourself, then I will give you a high five. Like, who do you think is going to be able to endure the difficulty of living by themselves in that bunker? The one with the high five is going to give up almost immediately because he has no hope for anything in the future. But the one who is promised $1 million, he's going to be able to endure that and a whole lot more because of what he knows is coming in the future. Timothy Keller, he says this. He says, you and I are unavoidably and irreducibly hope-based creatures. We are controlled how we live now by what we think will happen later, by our understanding of the ultimate future state. Christian hope has to do with the ultimate future state, not the immediate. As Christians, we are able to endure this broken world, the pain and the suffering, the despair and the discouragement because of our future hope. When you have Christian hope, it changes your perspective, and you're able to endure so much more because of that future hope. This is what Christian hope is about. Tim Mackey from the Bible Project, he says this. He says, Christian hope looks back at the risen Jesus in order to look forward. And so what are we to do with all of this? How can this hope affect us today? And what can we as a congregation do with this Christian hope that Jesus offers? And I just have one thing for us to do, is we need to share the hope of Jesus with the world and with others. We need to share the hope of Jesus with the world because the world is a broken, dark place. We all know this to be true, don't we? Like the world is broken, it's sinful, it's dark, and we as Christians need to be the bringers of hope into this dark world. And so that may mean doing things like out in the lobby, doing things with the Christmas in the Valley or the angel trees or helping with the food pantry, doing things to bring hope into this dark world on a big level. But we're also to bring hope to people individually. Maybe you know someone that is going through a dark time. A loved one has passed. They're going through a job loss or a divorce. They're just struggling financially or life has just kind of come at them and beat them up. Like we as Christians should be the bringers of hope to those people that we know need it. And so take them out to coffee, help them out financially, give them the hope of Jesus. And so let's share the hope of Jesus with not only the world, but with people that we know and love individually. And so this is my call to you this week. If you are here this morning and you haven't experienced the hope of Jesus, and you haven't experienced the hope that Jesus brings, the light that he brings and offers for your life, and you want to accept that hope today, as we sing this next song, there's going to be some shepherds in the back in room 115. And they are going to be there to receive you and to pray with you and to tell you how you can accept the hope of Christ in your life. So if you need that, or if you have any other spiritual needs, as we sing this next song, go back to room 115 and some of our shepherds will be waiting for you.